Hello, welcome back to episode 3 of the Women of Wrestling podcast here on DivaDirt.com. I'm Stu Allen. I'm here with my colleague Lee Burton.
Hello.
And we've got a guest tonight who, the former winner of Tough Enough 2.
Yeah, look, got Gayda-Haas on the show. She's going to be talking to us about her time in WWE, her time in TNA. We're going to be asking her about that match as well, so we'll see what she says about that. And also life as a wrestler's wife and a mother.
Yeah, I mean, Jackie's had, I think it's probably fair to say, an abbreviated career, but it's not been an uneventful career.
Well, this is it. We've got tons of things that we'd love to ask her about. So even in that short amount of time that she was involved in WWE and TNA, there's a lot of different things that she was involved in that we'd be quite interested to hear what she's got to say.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that she was involved in the whole Tough Enough thing, which was a really interesting concept back in the day. Some people very pro-Tough Enough, some people very anti-Tough Enough, thought it exposed the business a lot. But
I adored Tough Enough.
You did. You're well known for this.
I can't begin to tell you how much I loved Tough Enough. This is probably one of the greatest things that could happen to me talking to Jackie.
I'm glad to hear it.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this.
Good. All right then. Well, before we start talking to Jackie, we're going to try and pin her down another few minutes. We'll take a moment to talk about the big changes that have happened this week in WWE, where they've moved around a few ladies in a big trade.
Yeah, there's been a lot of shuffling for what I can understand, no apparent reason.
So pretty much the usual WWE modus operandi then.
I suppose. Well, let's go through the list of the people who've moved and where they've moved and things like that. And I'm looking at the list here. First off, we're starting with the Bella Twins going from ECW to Raw in a move which makes absolutely no difference to anyone anywhere ever.
No. From what I understand, Vince quite enjoyed seeing them interact with guest hosts, so they'll probably be on the arm of whatever male guest host there is in any given week, which this coming week is going to be Snoop Dogg.
How's that going to make any difference to when they were still on ECW and coming out with the guest hosts every week on Raw?
It absolutely means nothing.
Absolutely pointless move, and quite frankly, I think they're in trouble. Not necessarily in trouble with the office or anything like that, but just in trouble with the fact that they don't really know what to do with them. They went from SmackDown to Raw to ECW, back to Raw. They've got no idea what to do with these twins. When you think it'd be pretty easy.
You would think they've got an inbuilt look, they've got an inbuilt gimmick, but I don't know. It's just one of those things where I don't know if WWE are ever going to get rid of them just because they are supremely hot twins, but I don't know.
It's an issue with them. I reckon you should turn them heel and have to do the whole switcheroo things.
Well, at least then it would make sense.
Yeah, they'd just be like Hot Doink the Clowns.
Yes.
And who can argue with that, let's be honest?
Perhaps they need to just have a tweak of their gimmick, I don't know.
That might be a good idea. Next on the list, we've got Beth Phoenix moving from Raw to SmackDown, which is fair enough in my eyes. It's not exactly like Beth was doing a huge amount on Raw and kind of lost in the shuffle.
Beth's been kind of lost since she and Santino split, and Beth never got the opportunity to get the payoff over Santina that she should have got, and really her heat was destroyed in those weeks after WrestleMania when Santina beat her time and time again. It took away everything about what made Beth Phoenix special, and I know WWE with the two brands have got to try and sort of replicate to some extent the old WWE, WCW, where you can go from one to the other and become fresh again. Maybe Beth Phoenix on SmackDown can become fresh again, can start getting pushed again like she is a threat, which she should be.
I'd like to see a face turn for Beth Phoenix, something a little bit different from her. Not exactly change her gimmick so she's smiling and waving to everybody, but just being the same person but just beating up on the bad girls instead.
Yeah, that's possible. And I'll tell you, I mean, when she was with Santino was very popular, and she, by extension, was kind of popular too. So I can see that working.
And she's got some good comic timing and acting and things like that. So I'm be all for a Beth heel turn and a Beth versus Michelle McCool feud.
Interesting.
Next, Eve to Raw, which I think is great, quite frankly, because it's almost like a well done. You've worked hard. You've done well on SmackDown. You're getting better. Let's stick you on the live show and see how you do.
Yeah, it's a promotion. There's no doubt about that. I don't know what their plans are for Eve, but I would like to think that they involve giving her a push. She's been involved with Crime Time on the SmackDown brand, which she's not going to have that anymore on Raw. So hopefully she can stake a claim for herself in the women's division over on Raw.
No disrespect to her, but she's quite she's bulkier than some of the other girls who wrestle, and she looks like she's got some size and looks like she can actually beat you up. So I'm all for it. I hope that she goes on to Raw and actually makes a difference.
Well, we talked about Eve before in the show. We're both supporters of Eve, so
Alison Danger loves Eve as well.
Everyone loves Eve, so fingers crossed she'll do quite well for herself on Raw.
I'm a believer. I couldn't leave her if I tried. Sorry.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on. Mickey James to SmackDown. Well.
Now, we talked about promotions. This appears to be a demotion, only because the stories we're hearing are that WWE are not happy with Mickey, not happy with her weight issues, which just appalls me.
Quite superficial, I think.
That's ridiculously superficial. There's nothing wrong with her, and also quite down on her with her apparent attitude problems as well. And certainly she's not exactly hidden her problems that she's had with a couple of the girls in the ring over the last couple of months.
No, she's been having some bad matches, and they're not necessarily her faults, but then she's not necessarily blameless about it either, because I think she's one of the people who is looked up to as far as the women's division is concerned. And if you're having a bad attitude because somebody's messing up and you're not able to carry them, and you're visually showing this, it doesn't exactly look good. Personally, obviously, I think that as far as her opponents are concerned, I think she's been having bad match after bad match, and I think somebody saying, well, Mickey's in all these bad matches, it must be her fault, which I don't necessarily think is true. And they'll probably find that out on SmackDown when she's wrestling, people like Natalya and Beth Still and Michelle McCool.
Yeah, well, she should have better names to work with. She's somebody who you, on occasion, has said she works to the level of her opponent, and I think that's probably the best thing we can say about Mickey. When she's in there with somebody good, she's good. When she's in there with somebody bad, she allows herself to drop to that level.
It's almost like she feels like, I can sort of slacken off a little bit. I'm not going to try and keep up with this person. They've got to try and keep up with me, and then she sort of chips away at herself a little bit. It's a shame. Because I like Mickey. I think
she gets frustrated, doesn't she? I think that's the thing. She gets frustrated with some of the girls not being on her level, and maybe I don't know. I don't want to say I support the move to SmackDown for Mickey, but because as I say, at least 50% of the reason is rubbish. But maybe it will give her a new lease of life, give her a reason to prove herself again, give her a reason to get her motivation levels back up.
That DDT has to go, by the way.
Well, yeah.
The fact that your opponent has to hold you up, and some of these girls aren't exactly the strongest humans in the world, it does mean for sort of awkward DDTs, especially that one that was on Alicia Fox at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, which looks like it frigging killed her.
Yes.
I think that has to go.
Speaking of awkward...
we got Rosa Mendes.
You read my mind very well, Mr. Burton.
Rosa Mendes heading to ECW. Now, this is a move which I gladly welcome.
Well, it means she's not going to be doing much wrestling over there, because ECW has now got two ladies, and unless they're going to do an extended
Poor Katie Lee.
Unless they're going to do an extended feud between Rosa Mendes and Katie Lee, I imagine that she will go to ECW. She'll be a valet for somebody, where she can look pretty and she can be an effective interference tool and not actually ever have to wrestle. So in that respect, good move.
I think Rosa probably is better as being somebody who is outside of the ring.
Yeah.
But maybe she'll get a chance to tour around, and she'll be obviously with the ECW guys. She'll be obviously wrestling with the SmackDown lot as well. So maybe there's a possibility of that happening. I bet Mickey's looking forward to more matches with Rosa. And then we get to the most controversial one of our ladies, let's say, Melina going to Raw
and immediately becoming the women's champion.
Yes, yeah. Now, please, you start.
I'm not a fan of this. I think Melina is somebody who has benefited greatly from being on SmackDown, where she is allowed to have the benefit of SmackDown editing between Tuesday and Friday. Melina is somebody who was having an absolutely terrible time earlier this year with just some absolute botch fests of matches. She was really doing badly on Raw with a lot of poor execution on moves. A lot of the moves you can see she's clearly been influenced by Mischief. She's clearly watched a bunch of Mischief matches, and she's determined to try and use some of the stuff. And either she doesn't have the ability. Well, maybe she's got the ability, but she just can't pull these things off in the same way that Mischief can.
I think it's a case of she knows the moves to do, but not necessarily when to do them. And some of the moves that she does can be quite contrived. It's almost like throwing a splits in for no particular reason. The prime example would be this week on Raw when she went to do that split-legged leg drop, whatever it was, on Jillian, and held Jillian back.
Yeah.
So she could execute it, so she could swing her leg round, and then let go of Jillian, and Jillian fell to the floor. And it looked really awkward. Now, I can't blame Jillian for this in the slightest, because she was held off balance. And if you're held off balance, you know, if someone lets go of you, you're going to fall. And if the other person doesn't fall down on top of you at the right time, that's not your fault. It's not like you can't defy physics.
No.
And I think it's an indictment of the flaw that Melina has in that, you know, she has benefited, like you say, from the SmackDown editing suite. Now she comes back onto Raw on live TV, and the first move she does would have probably been one that she'd like to do a retake on.
Yes. Yeah, if this was SmackDown and she was making her debut on SmackDown, what they could have done was they could have got up, they could have done another of those split leg drops, and it could have been edited and no one would know. But
unfortunately.
On Raw, she's going to be more exposed. Good luck to her, but I think she's somebody who's better served on SmackDown.
I think she might also suffer with the fact that the talent pool on Raw isn't exactly as strong as on SmackDown either.
That's a good point as well. She's going to feud now, we're hearing, with Jillian in a more elongated version of that feud, in which case you have to ask the question, why didn't Jillian retain?
Jillian was fantastic on Raw. I can't go any further without talking about how awesome she was when she was champion for 3 minutes.
She made the belt mean more in 3 minutes than any women's title was probably meant for a long time.
Oh my God, she hugged that thing, caressed that thing, wouldn't let go of it, was desperately trying to put it on when Melina's music came on because she knew she was screwed. It was amazing.
She wanted to wear it one time, and she didn't want to let go of it as well. I
felt so sorry for Jillian.
She knew she was screwed. The question you have to ask, though, is why did Nancy O'Dell, the guest GM, let's assume, you know, for a moment that this is all legit.
Oh, Christ, do we have to?
Why did Nancy O'Dell screw Jillian like she did? I mean, why did she book Melina to fight the winner of this match?
More to the point, if they did the trade before Raw started, why would you trade your Divas champion, Mickie James, onto SmackDown, and then, to try and get the title off her, put her against Jillian the Jobber, who hasn't won a match since the year dot?
Yeah.
It defies logic, which kind of makes sense for Raw these days.
A lot of the stuff that happened on this thing defied logic, and
the only great thing about it was Jillian holding that belt.
Yeah. I'm going to go with that.
If anything, she's increased her indie bookings when she gets released by tenfold, and now TNA will definitely want her because she's a former WWE champion.
Yep, former WWE Divas champion Jillian Hall.
So she'll be Knockouts champion the second she goes in.
She can make money in the indies for the rest of her life if she ever gets released.
She might be Knockouts tag champ by herself.
Or with another former WWE diva.
This is also a possibility.
But no, seriously. It's been an interesting week. Some good moves, some bad moves, some moves for the right reasons, some moves for the wrong reasons. But it remains to be seen what happens. It's, as usual in WWE, very difficult to understand what they're trying to do at any given time.
Yeah, I think the big losers out of this probably are Katie Lee, in the fact that she's now got nobody really to wrestle on ECW, and Mickie James can't exactly be feeling good about herself either.
No.
I don't think Rosa Mendes can complain about her lot very much.
No, I think that's pretty much it. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to watch in the weeks go by as they go on, and you know, if anything does happen of any interest, we'll talk about it on the show, but I think for now, what we'll do is we'll draw a line under this first discussion, and we will try to get the former WWE diva herself, Gayda-Haas, on the line. Okay, welcome back, and it's time for our interview segment of the show now, and here's somebody who, according to your own official website, she is a fitness mom and model, a writer and runner, personal trainer, and wrestling diva. Please welcome Gayda-Haas to the show.
Hello, how are you guys?
We're fantastic. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your very busy career, your very busy life for us. Family life and business life both going well, I trust.
Yes, yeah, a lot of juggling, but it's okay. Best job in the world, being a mom and retiring from the ring, so to speak. But yeah, a lot of things going on. So we're just really trying to expand our horizons and take what the wrestling business and industry has done for myself and still continuing to do from Charlie, and venture on from there. So
you have no idea how strange it is to be as young as you are to be talking about being retired. That's just weird.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I guess retired just, never say never with the industry, especially with wrestling. But I mean, right now it's such an industry that demands so much of you. So, I guess I do say retired, but you're always, there's always the wrestling bug once you're bit by it, and it's in your blood, and you always want to go back. And it's something right now for the next several years. I think it definitely has to go more towards the family and the business and everything, of course, and raising the family and putting more emphasis on that. But yeah, so I guess for the intermediate time, I'm retired, unless something were to come up in the future, which, like I said, is the business. It's nothing ever surprises anyone. So
no, that's entirely true. And you had, I think it's probably fair to say, a shortish career, but it's not been an uneventful one. And you managed to get in through one of the most sort of, I guess, groundbreaking and in some forms controversial show that WWE ever did, and that was Tough Enough.
Yes. Yeah.
Now my colleague Lee here's a massive fan of Tough Enough. I think. Lee, you said earlier on what was it, the best reality show ever?
Oh, I loved it. If you consider that one of the executive producers is the same person who does America's Next Top Model, you can kind of see that they do have similarities. But Jackie, I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people will know that you won Tough Enough 2. This is how we mentioned you before we brought you on the show. But a lot of people probably won't realise that you also auditioned and almost got into Tough Enough 1.
Yeah, you know what? It was just kind of a whim thing. Hate to say it, but a few girlfriends of mine just tried out, sent in some audition tapes. I used to run cross country in college and was studying broadcast journalism, and a few of my girlfriends and I just sent in some tapes and got a call back. And it snowballed from there, and before I knew it, I'm, standing in New York City, ready to be picked for a reality show. I'm like, oh my goodness. And it just didn't happen at the first one. And went back to the college life, and just kind of, it happened so quickly in a whirlwind, and my entire career was pretty much a whirlwind, as you said, but it just happened so quickly. I didn't really have time to absorb what I had experienced. And before you knew it, I got a contact and a call that there was a second one coming up, and they certainly wanted to see me again for it. So, yeah, I know. I almost made it that first time, and you know what? It's one of those things where just the several months that went by in between, I think gave me a little bit of time and just gave me, a little bit of time to kind of think about what it is that I would be potentially doing and going into, and see if this is something that I really want to do. It certainly was. I didn't understand anything, for lack of a better word, but yeah, it certainly was. So.
Well, listen, you were down to the last 25, and you were nearly there. And I guess when the 13 were picked, and you were one of the 12 who didn't make it, was this a case of you thought, right, I definitely want to do this if the opportunity comes in again? Were you bitten by the bug a lot more?
You know what? I was certainly, and I was very, very intrigued. At that point, though, like I said, I was full go in college. I was in the beginning of my third year, running cross country and track, and studying very heavily into my major, so I wasn't able to really kind of go out and venture into the pro wrestling school atmosphere or anything like that, but I was certainly like, oh my gosh, this is an aspect of me that I always thought of myself as someone more behind the scenes of type of television or production work or anything like that, and certainly never anything as far as, as pro wrestling, but it was something that I'm like, oh my gosh, that so opened my eyes. And, so as every week went by, I was kind of, there's something kind of knocking at the back of my head, kind of thinking, hey, maybe there's something to this and everything. And even though I had so much going on, I mean, I got that phone call and I was extremely, extremely excited, and I knew that you just kind of know that there's a piece that there's something in life that you're supposed to venture off and do. And even though my parents thought I was crazy, I couldn't be more more excited to go back and try it for a second time. So.
Well, this is it. I'm sharing an affinity right now because we're both roughly about the same age. We both studied broadcast journalism. We both love Tough Enough as well. I suppose there's a lot of a lot of passion that you have for it, and you could have easily been knocked back. And I think I remember that ODB was also one of the people who was in Tough Enough 1 who got down to the same level that you did, and she didn't make it. And as of when we're talking right now, she's TNA Knockouts champ. So I suppose there's that passion that you have that sort of drives you forward.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And the world of pro wrestling, I mean, it comes from all different angles of personality, of realms of life, of, it's really a melting pot. I mean, it really is. Charlie used to work on Wall Street for 6 years before he became his childhood dream of a pro wrestler, and then you've got other people that, like myself, I didn't necessarily know that it was a part of me until I kind of fell into it.
Oh, I suppose we should talk about the show itself. I guess one thing that people wonder about Tough Enough and all these kind of reality shows is how much of it is, really just what's happening and the cameras are just catching it, and how much of it is sort of set up and, they might sort of manipulate things. You probably would have more of an insight on that than anybody, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? The famous line in reality television is take two. It's something where the whole premise at first of reality shows that, it was supposed to catch you off whim, and that was the whole deal. You have a camera and mic on you 24/7, and whatever goes, and you knew that when you signed up for it. Really the whole aspect of it being a reality show, it's still cast to an extent where they're, not just going to throw anybody in there and them kind of be the same type of personality or look or whatever. If you see and you look at any reality show, I mean, you're basically put into a character mold, when you first start cast. And they kind of, through the cutting and editing and all that, they don't ask you, it's at least in my situation with Tough Enough, they didn't ask you to do a certain thing or say, hey, you've got to do this, yada, yada, to make it look this way. They took their own liberties of the editing and making it look that way. Sometimes if you even look closer at the shows, and I know in ours this is a good situation, in the case of Linda a lot, I mean, she was a very headstrong person, but at the same token, some of the ways that she was portrayed, it's like she's answering questions, and it looks like the question she's answering isn't even in the same, ballpark as what it should be. So it's kind of like, you know what I mean? It's cut and pasted in ways where they want to portray something as they want to. So, I mean, to an extent, yeah, it is reality because you're seeing what's happening. It wasn't a written script, but at the same token, they do put it how they want it to appear on television. So,
well, I guess the thing that Tough Enough 2 had that I think the other two didn't have to such an extent was a bit of a soap opera angle, which you centered around. There were two big moments, I guess, that you centered around. The first one was in the middle of the show, as far as the romantic element was concerned.
Yeah, and everybody makes mistakes. Unfortunately, mine was on national television, yeah. So it's, just one of those things where it's in my favor, not in my favor, but I mean, I actually think that the way that it was portrayed, it certainly didn't work out in my favor, but I've always said this, I think the directors and things, I know you made mention of Kevin Mock before too, who was the producer, it was done in a way where, it didn't necessarily have to get absolutely that ugly, or they didn't take that and then just exploit me the entire rest of the season, which they could have very, very easily done just with it being the whole television aspect. So, you know what, I know I'm, like you said before, still kind of young, but super young, super stupid, did something I shouldn't have, and, you live and you learn, you pick up the pieces, or you can, weep and whatever for a long time. My boyfriend and I were together for... Yeah, and my boyfriend and I were together for 3 years after that. So, I mean, we definitely did, fix the situation and, well, not fix it, but you know what I mean? We worked through the situation and everything. And then just when push came to shove after being on the road for 2 years with the company, it was something where, other reasons being, so.
Yeah. Well, sorry to talk over the top here. I guess you did pick yourself up to the near the end where you suffered, which is pretty much a horrific injury, just so near the end. And even though you were sort of encouraged to pull out, you chose not to, and you carried on and made it all the way to the end of training.
Yeah, and that was something that, I mean, that's just, I think coming from, if you've got somebody that's a true athlete, or someone that just, I shouldn't say or, but, you've got two spectrums. I'm an athlete. I've competed my entire life in running, and now I'm doing triathlons, so cycling and swimming isn't, and it too, but that's just always been something that's been embedded in me, is that competitor type of deal, and if something happens, it's like, what can you do? You make the best of the situation, and, as far as injuries are concerned, that was the most intense injury that I've ever had, completely tearing my ACL and my whole knee and everything all completely shot and needing the reconstructive surgery after. And it was something where, you just think, did you put all of this effort and will? And, I just wanted it so bad at that point too, not only to win, but to be a part of the pro wrestling industry. And, it was one of those things. I asked the doctor, I said, can I do any more damage, or is it completely done pretty much? And he said, no, you can't. You're at the point now where you're going to need surgery if you're going to want to continue anyway. You can't do any more damage. So I said, let's put a brace on it and let's continue. And I told Big, no, I'm going down.
Well, there was that interview that you had with Big, or it wasn't even an interview, it was a chat that you had with Big in the locker room, and I think that to me, watching that, I think that's the moment where anybody who looks at you says, this girl wants it. This is, she's a winner, and she's not going to back down just because of this injury. She's going to carry on. I genuinely think it was that moment that swung it for you.
Yeah, well, thank you. That was, and really there was a lot that even after the cameras turned off with that, and even more of, okay, this is not just for drama, like this is for serious. We had a lot of talks and stuff after that, and I said, no, absolutely not. So, like I said, if you have that competitor type of spirit ingrained in you, if I was gonna, end up having to amputate my leg, I may have thought differently, but, it's just, it comes with the field. It comes with the territory. I got a big taste of what it would be like to be in that profession, before I was officially in it. So, it's that real life experience that makes you, into who you are and can give you all the best, and make you into that, so.
Well, I guess the final thing I just wanted to ask about Tough Enough was the fact that your show was the one where there were two female winners, and there was a lot of sort of talk afterwards about whether that was sort of changing the rules at the very end, or whether that was okay and that kind of thing. But as far as yourself and Linda were concerned, did you two truly feel that you were the ones who deserved to win it?
You know what? I kind of had a funny feeling about it before before it really even got too much into the season. There was just something and since I saw the contract for the first touch-up and the second, it had said there will be two winners chosen. It did not say a male and a female, and it designated that in the first Tough Enough. And I don't know why it stuck with me, but I remember Linda and I were talking, and I said, did you read that in there? And, we roomed the very first go-around, and you just kind of see people and can see their attitude and everything. And I, of course, went in there thinking, I want to go in there to win it. And I didn't know it would be that way. It really didn't shock or surprise me that it happened that way. It's just those little kind of things that you pick up on, so.
Oh, well, I think I've asked you about 15 minutes worth of questions about Tough Enough, so I'm going to throw you back over to Stu for some other stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
Well, with regards to after Tough Enough, then, you eventually, you almost immediately went straight on the road with WWE. Was that what you were expecting, or did you expect that you were going to be sent down for further training before you start to wrestle?
Oh, yeah, it was something where I got a phone call, and I thought that this is a joke. I'm like, there's no way. I literally got a phone call 3 days after I came back home, and I'm like, wow, that you're fresh off TV, they want to use that momentum and everything. But the same token, Lord, I had only been in a ring for a couple months and knew that I needed a lot more training to do. So it was definitely a surprise when they had let us know.
So you went on the road, or you went into the women's locker room in WWE for the first time then. What sort of reaction did you get from the girls in the locker room? Regardless of whether you eventually became friends with them or not, I imagine there was probably some sort of people, quite looking you up and down, like this is the girl that got in the easy way through Tough Enough rather than paying her dues. Did you find that with the girls?
You know what? It was such a nerve-wracking time for me. The very first the very first few months when I was there anyway. So, I mean, yeah, you certainly want to be accepted and want to get the chance to prove yourself. So, you have the nerves regardless. I never had any situation with anybody where, it was kind of like a bully initiation, or not, I shouldn't say bully, but like an initiation, you know what I mean? Nothing like that. I think it was the overall, newness of everything. But no, I mean, an overall aspect of it, I mean, I have a lot of girls, Molly really helped me out a lot too, and so did Trish, and, Jackie beat my butt too on a lot of the house shows. It was either, Molly, Linda, Jackie, and, I, or, Trish there. And, the girls were, the girls that really helped us and took us under their wing and helped us as much as they could. I can't be any more thankful for it. So.
Well, that's nice. I mean, now, in your initial run, which was a fairly short run, you're most well known for one particularly famous match on Raw on July 8th, 2002, a match which, a lot of people said was the worst match of the year and so on. And it was a match with yourself and Christopher Nowinski against Trish and Bradshaw. And it's famous for the Bulldog, of course, which finished the match. But, I mean, something like that, I find it hard to blame you because, you were put out there with so little training that, to turn the blame on you just seems to be unfair. I mean, was that the match that I sort of thought, actually, maybe these girls shouldn't be on TV yet?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Hindsight's 20/20, and you look back and you say, yeah, should I have said that I was? I mean, you're going to be absolutely nervous as hell, regardless. Every time you go through the curtain, you're nervous as hell. You could be 10 years in and still the same amount of nerves, or whatever. But you know what? It's something where I agree wholeheartedly. You need more experience than just a few months on a TV show to go ahead and be on national television in front of, in front of thousands of people, and on national and international television in front of millions. It's something that wrestling is active theater. It's something that you have to, you have to pick up on the fly. And as you see, I just didn't have the experience to go ahead and cover an oops. I didn't have that knowledge yet, and I didn't have that understanding of really what it was like. So, I mean, if I had to go and do it all over again, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess I would have loved to have been down in Louisville, another year. But, you've got to sink or swim, and that's just another one of those opportunities where, I went back and I just apologized so much and, didn't even realize and know it was happening. And, Fit Finley is amazing for the industry and has done so much, especially with this girls. And he's like, it is not your fault. I said, but yeah, still, I mean, that's something where, yeah, I mean, you've got to learn. And I think right at that point, not necessarily at that point, but I think that, wrestling as a whole needs to look at that and take that a little bit more seriously, that, just because somebody's hot or just because somebody's, like I said, hot off TV or hot off of another show or something, you've got to, you've got to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
Is that something that's more likely with the girls, though? The fact that they like you say, they'll sort of put them onto TV quite early, and they might not necessarily look like they're ready.
Yeah. You know what? And it's not the girls' fault. It's not some of the guys' faults that are, in that situation. It's how the writers write it, and it's how Vince wants whomever on TV, and it just, you've got to go with the flow. But I wish that, they don't take a professional football player who's never quarterbacked in his life and put him in a bowl game, for a college bowl game. It just doesn't happen that way. So, I mean, why do the same type of instance, and not to the exact thing, but I mean, that's a pretty good example there. You don't do that. You have to prepare people for their crafts. And, I certainly think that it would, not to give wrestling a better name, because it certainly does, but I mean, I think it would help expose more, or it would help take away some of the flaws that are exposed in the business a little bit more if you were groomed a little bit before you were put on the national stage in a lot of people's circumstances. So.
Indeed. You mentioned him in passing there, and I have to take the opportunity to ask somebody who's actually met the person in real life, because he's a fascinating character to many fans and observers of the business. But Vince himself, Vince McMahon, what was he like first time he met you? What was what was your first impression of Vince? Because he's such a larger-than-life character.
Oh, he certainly is, and that's exactly how he is. You're extremely intimidated. I mean, no matter who talks to him, I think is that way. Really, he just has such a presence about him, and I mean, that's what it takes for somebody, to just be in such power, in the industry and in the world too. This guy has a lot of power, and it just exudes off of him. He knows what he wants and he goes after it, and he doesn't care who he loves and hurts and steps on or picks up along the way. As long as it's making him money and it's doing well for his brand. And, he has made a huge mecca of pro wrestling and, just made it into something so huge that I don't even know if his father ever dreamed it would be this big. So, I mean, but yeah, he's a very, very powerful, intimidating man. You can sit down and certainly talk to him, but your lip still quivers, I think, when you do that. Unless, you're talking to him a few times and kind of feel a little bit comfortable, but there's just definitely that empower feeling about him.
Did you ever get that sort of comfort feeling with him?
No, you know what? I never really did. I never ever did. It was just, I had one or two pre-tapes where they were like he has relationships with, a few divas here and there along the line, or it seems like everybody has to go through the ranks and, but I never got to a point where I worked with him a lot, where I was ever able to, get to know him a little bit better or, just be on a more personal level or anything like that. Just to where we had a storyline or anything like that. So, I never really did. He was, even to this day, it's just, kind of like, hi Vince, I'm Mr. McMahon. But.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, I mean, after that then, you did get the opportunity that you should have got right from the beginning, and you got to go down to Louisville and work with OVW, and specifically you became a member of the Revolution faction down there. I mean, let's talk about a little bit about your time at OVW. And let's first of all talk about Jim Cornette. What was Jim Cornette like to work under in OVW?
At that point, and I still kind of think he is, even though I haven't worked with him ever since there, he was very hard on women in the wrestling industry, so to speak, that, he wasn't ever afraid to kind of say, oh, you girls don't belong here, yada, yada, kind of saying it in a joking manner, but then you think, oh, hell, he kind of means it too. But, he's very, very amazing and awesome to learn from. He's got a great mind for the business and a lot of passion for it, and just watching him work, it was something that I really took a lot for him, from. So I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity for the year and then some to, to work with him.
I listened to an interview with Jim Cornette a few days ago, actually, and he talked about if he had one problem, it was he's got no middle gear. He's either your best friend or he's a shouting, raving lunatic. Did you ever get to see that part of him? Did he ever blow up at either you or anybody else?
You mean ever just randomly hit cars with baseball bats or, any of that? Yeah, he certainly had some times where he would be where he'd go storming out of the building under quite distressed circumstance. Yeah.
What about working then as you worked mostly as a manager, I guess, in OVW with the Revolution? What were those guys like to work with then? We were talking here about Doug Basham and Rob Conway, a bunch of guys who really had, in my opinion, had huge careers ahead of them, and really guys who ended up getting their careers fumbled.
Yeah, they were amazing guys down there at OVW. I mean, like you said, Doug Basham, Doug and Danny both, Rob Conway, Nick Densmore, they were all guys that, really, you were part of the boys. They took you under their wing and, you practiced with them, you bumped with them, you had the whole 9 yards. It was something that I was really, really thankful to have those group of guys there to work with and to learn from.
Of the people you worked with then in Tough Enough and OVW, who would have been the most responsible, do you think, for helping you along, for giving you the best tips, for giving you the best training?
I mean, really kind of overall, and just because I always joke, I'm like, man, you're my wrestling dad, would really be Al. He was the first one that really, ever kind of, I guess, explained the business to you a little bit before, you have to go through it, I think, yourself to fully kind of understand it or understand parts of it. But he really, whether it was any in the ring questions, out of the ring questions, questions about moves or not questions about moves, but, actually doing moves. I mean, it was all around. He was really, really a fantastic mentor to have. And other than that, Nick Dinsmore at OVW really would take a lot of time to really help people that wanted to learn. So.
Okay. And another guy you would have encountered down there for the first time was the guy that you ended up coming up with back to WWE again. That would have been Rico Constantino.
Yes.
Now, we talked about people coming from diverse backgrounds before in this interview, and he's a guy who was, he was an LA cop, and he was also an American Gladiator.
Yeah, Rico's a jack of all trades, and he's still in Las Vegas, and I just saw him actually a couple weeks ago out there. He is, he certainly has a diversified background, and, I really think that, he's a great person. I mean, great person, great coworker, just great individual all around. I couldn't be any more happy to have that, that run with him, and to have someone to look out for me too in the industry like he did. So.
He came to wrestling quite late in his life, didn't he? I mean, by comparison to a lot of the guys, he, do you think because of his age, because he came to wrestling quite late, do you think he appreciated when he got up to WWE more than most?
Yeah, I kind of think so, but also, I mean, Rico is he's a very, very young spirit, and I just think, like I said before, if you have the passion for it, you have it, and he was certainly one of those guys that, while wrestling appreciated him, he appreciated it 1,010%. I certainly think everything that he's done in life, it helped him to get to that point a little bit more, but, he's just a loving, caring person when it comes down to it, period, so. In whatever facet of life he does.
Sure. How was the gimmick then of you and Rico pitched to you? A writer had mentioned something to me briefly about it, and then he had called me first and said, "Hey kid, I think we're gonna be paired up together." And he said they really want us to do this Miss Elizabeth type of gimmick with you and everything, but kind of give it a modern day twist, and have this girl with this guy, and nobody just kind of knows why, and everything, and just kind of like a freaking frack, and he said we're just going to make it work. He went and studied a lot and everything, and in the whole 9 yards, and it turned out really neat. So he was actually the one to really give me a call and a pep talk and say, hey, we're going to make this pretty awesome. And unfortunately, I think there could have been so much more done with it, and especially when you threw Charlie into the mix and everything, that wasn't. But fortunately, that's one thing with wrestling. Everything usually ends a little too prematurely. But when you came back up, then you were with Rico for most of the time, but you did end up working WrestleMania 20, and I think, Lee, you'd probably best ask because you were there in the audience, weren't you?
Well, yeah, I was there. It was what was it? A Playboy evening gown match that sort of turned into a sort of lingerie match that you were involved in? Yeah,
exactly. It was the first thing that Playboy was really ever associated with WWE. But yeah, it was an evening gown match, Playboy evening gown match that did turn more into lingerie type deal, which, I always wish it could have been more on the other athletic side, but, it was being in WrestleMania 12, WrestleMania 20. It was unbelievable. That was definitely still one of the highlights of my career.
Well, this is the thing I wanted to ask about, the fact that you are wrestling in essentially what is underwear. How different is it to wrestling in lingerie, to having some proper gear? Is it a case you have to, watch what you're doing a lot more? Is there a case of, you just got to make sure that I guess there's no, quote unquote, wardrobe malfunctions?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in my case, of course, that's okay. And in my case, that's something that certainly did happen as well, but a lot of tape, a lot of top stick, and you just have to, it's something where you've got to be a little bit more aware of the moves that you're doing, and more so than the moves, the bumps that you take and how you're falling, and the impact and all that, and then also just keeping a close eye and making sure you check yourself every once in a while. So,
do you feel comfortable
there's nothing like rolling around in your underwear. Yeah, that's one of the, you've just got to, you can't even think about it. You just have to go and do it and say, good Lord, what on earth am I doing? But, it's something, yeah, you just have to go with the flow. So
something I wanted to ask about WrestleMania was, so you hear some people say, on the sort of professional side when they're talking to cameras in a professional sense, they're saying that, WrestleMania is the biggest show of the year and it feels different to everything else. And then you hear some other interviews where some wrestlers will say, well, it's, to the fans it's a huge deal, and, to the media it's a huge deal, but to wrestlers it's just another show. I mean, where do you sit on that?
Oh, yeah, I certainly do think it's just another show. I mean, whether you're at a house show or whether you are at WrestleMania, I mean, you're still performing and you're still performing and being in front of fans. So, I mean, whether it's, a few people at Indies or, on the grandest stage of them all, it is. A match is a match. A performance is a performance. However, it's something kind of really neat as far as, like I said, just to kind of hold that in your career attributes or highlights and to say that you are a part of that. That's something where I think it stands apart from any other matches. And certainly, you hype yourself up a little bit more about it because it is hyped up more through the media and through the fans. But when push comes to shove, like I said, a performance is a performance no matter where you're at. So you're always going to give them 110%. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, post WrestleMania 20 then in the draft, you and Rico both ended up going to SmackDown. And I guess, was it at that point then that you started to become romantically linked with Charlie?
Yeah, you know what? It was Charlie and I are actually. It's one of those stories where you go, God, things are just meant to happen. They're meant to happen. We actually during that WrestleMania week, I had no idea it had happened at the time, and neither did he. But I was talking about my boyfriend at the time, and we had broken up during that week of WrestleMania, and I had really not known Charlie that well, actually, at all, other than just knowing he's a great, fantastic guy, and he is someone that I just had a lot of respect for. I knew that he was a good guy, and he had actually broken up with his girlfriend right around that same time too, and neither one of us had any idea. And then when we got on the same show, it was something that, we had talked for a little bit, and it just kind of happened. It did. You're with someone for that long, and both of us had sworn off relationships and had said, you know what, and we just had a talk on a plane one day, and no, this was one of the first conversations we ever had, and we were just talking about how you have to just enjoy your time for yourself in this industry, and it's hard for someone outside to understand that. And several months later, we just said, wow, things are meant to happen, and they did, So
were you paired up on screen first, and then it blossomed in real life, or did they did they put Charlie with you and Rico because you guys were together in real life?
No. We had actually started talking and everything, but no, we were paired together with the whole Rico thing, and then it kind of actually happened simultaneously. It really did. The exact timing of it, I mean, when we were paired up this very first time that we did get together, yeah, so it's. Like I said, I didn't know that much about him or really even talk to him that much until I did. We were on the same show over at SmackDown. So, yeah, it was more of the pairing first and then, us getting together. So.
Well, what's it like as far as, trying to having that professional relationship on screen, and then have a personal relationship off screen? How does it work? Do you sort of say, right, when we're at work, we're at work?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to realize that work is work and work stays at work, but, you're going to be in the same industry. You're, of course, going to talk about things. But, when you're not there and you're not in the ring together, and you're not traveling, it's just about enjoying each other and having a regular relationship, and especially traveling with someone and being with someone 24/7 and getting to learn them on the road when it's the most stressful time, and everything. That's when I think you get to know the good, the bad, and the ugly of someone, where necessarily at a regular relationship, or where you're not working with someone, it might take a little bit longer to understand and develop or appreciate that about a person, or see if you guys are really meant to be together. So, yeah, it's something that it certainly is something that we developed along the way. So.
As far as nurturing the relationship and letting it grow, was it quite difficult to do that when you're around your other colleagues and they because you are so close knit, are they sort of in your business a little bit?
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, there are times there's constantly ribs going on and everything, and you just have to realize, like, okay, are you going to let these guys get under your skin, or just enjoy each other? And it happens at the first little bit whenever two people are together, and they try to just make a mockery of you in the whole 9 yards. But then after they realize, okay, maybe this is a little serious, or after the fun wears off, then they kind of let go. But I mean, that's I don't know. Under our circumstance, it didn't bother us one bit. Absolutely not, because we knew that we were happy with one another. Yeah, you know what? No, I mean, not really. I mean, it really, really didn't. You knew that just by the way that the boys and girls rib, it's something that comes par with the course. So, you're going to get ribbed and going to have a lot of things happen to you regardless if you're with somebody or not. So why not share it with somebody, just let it roll off your shoulders. So in our instance, it never was an issue. It never was a problem. It wasn't anything that ever bothered us. So
it might be personal, but I don't know if you can share with us, but I mean, what sort of ribs are we talking about here? Can you give us an example of something that's...
Yeah, you know what? No, but the only thing that really ever really was kind of repetitive and got to be kind of annoying was actually JBL. We were over at we were doing an Italy tour, and this was right after we had first kind of everybody found out that we were together and everything, and he would not stop for the 7, 8, 9 hours it was on the plane ride over there, just literally on our shoulders, breathing down our neck, saying, "Okay, if you guys are serious, we're gonna get you guys eloped here. We really are, because we can't have this type of stuff happening with the boys," and yada yada yada. And it was just breathing down our necks for such a long time, and then pretty much that whole trip, and then it subsided after that. And he's like, "Hey, you guys are good sports," and now business partners at this day and age. So.
True, that's true. We'll talk about that coming up as well. Again, just a question again, not to harp on the Charlie thing too much, but one of the big stories then that came out of you and him being paired together on screen was they had an angle whereby Dawn Marie was pursuing him, and there was the angle about whether or not he had an affair with her and things like that. How comfortable were you with that?
Well, I mean, you have to know, even the writers, everybody ribs everybody in wrestling. It's not only a boy thing. I mean, Vince is probably one of the biggest ribbers of them all. So when that comes, you realize, like, okay, well, hey, look, not that they're trying to put stress on your relationship, but they're having fun with it. I mean, they have to amuse themselves. Everybody's such a family, or so close-knit. You've got to do stuff that's just gonna, get a laugh out of people. And I think that's how it first developed. Like, okay, let's see if we can jack around with them a little bit, And then when it came to it, it's like, you know what? We can either get frustrated or upset and say, "Oh, I don't want to do this," or "Don't have her say that," or whatever, or you can take it and make the best out of it, And sometimes when fans would constantly be coming up to us all the time, and there was a time when Dawn and Marie and I were riding together all the time, and then, we had stopped or whatever, Dawn, Charlie, and I, and then we had stopped, and then we had kind of started, we played along with it too, and that's some of the fun when people can't tell if it's really the truth or, more of the written storyline, so.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. And you certainly sound like you went along with it in the best of spirits, which is nice to see. The question I have for you now is that you clearly had everything going for you in WWE, and you had everything going for you in your personal life, and you reached the point where you and Charlie got married, I think, in June 2005. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
And then you and he together were both released in the big famous cull of July 2005, where WWE sort of slashed half of their roster. And I think, were you guys even on your honeymoon at the time?
Yeah, we were. We just came back from our honeymoon, and then they literally called us that next week and said, "Oh, you guys aren't needed for TV." And whenever that happens, you kind of go, that kind of sucks. And then it was a week or 2 weeks after that. And then, it's just so silly. Then 3 months later, they call Charlie, and they're like, "Oh, we want you back, man." I'm like, that's just the nature of the beast with the business. I'm like, why don't you guys just let me go? Like, that's silly in my eyes, and that's just so how wrestling is. Vince wakes up on one side of the bed one day and the other, and, changes his mind a million times in the middle. So, it's just something that, yeah, it sucked, and it was a surprise and everything, but it's, as you know, people are just cut from main huge storylines, and then the next day are, fired. So it was a surprise, and not a fun surprise, but you should know that not much can surprise people right now about wrestling.
No,
so.
It's bizarre to think, as you say, that Vince wakes up on one side of the bed or the other side of the bed, and depending on what side of the bed he gets out of, people can lose their jobs.
Oh, yeah, and that's very, very true. You can be in his back pocket one day, and then the next day it's like, not doing anything with him, let him go. And Charlie's a prime example, and even kind of his whole career has been. You know, he's had so many talks with Vince and with the upper, you know, agents and, you know, and just the boys in general. And, you know, he's been with the company for almost 10 years, and it's the point where, you know, he's like, man, Vince, you're always so, you know, I know you say I don't have the it thing or the charisma or this or that, so you put this, like, the character impersonation thing on him, and then you're laughing your ass off every week, yeah, at my expense, but you're like, holy shit, I didn't think you could do it. You know, and then the next day, they just completely drop it and don't do anything with it. So that's how everybody is on, you know, a lot of circumstances. And, yeah, Vince is just a, you know, it's an ever-changing industry. It really, really is.
I mean, does that keep you on edge, knowing that, you know, that at any time it could be over? Because, you know, I guess there's obviously the guys on top who sort of, you know, sort of lifers, or the ones who, you know, pretty sure aren't going anywhere. And then there's sort of everybody else who, you know, like you said, depending on what day it is or the way that the stars align, it could be your final day in the company.
Yeah, I mean, prime example would be just the one that comes to the top of my head, and I think this surprised everyone the most was Ken Kennedy. I mean, he was one of the major storyline guys, you know, up there with everybody else, and, you know, then all of a sudden, it just, next day, sorry, future endeavored, you know? So it's something you just really can never figure out, no matter how hard you try.
I'm sorry, I just love the fact that you just said future endeavoured, because that's just a phrase that I think a lot of people who write online or on forums and things like that just use it as a sort of future endeavoured title, and I just love the fact that you guys are latching onto it as well.
Oh yeah. That's always such a fantastic term. Yes.
So when Charlie then went back to WWE, you ended up finding yourself in TNA. How did that come about? First of all, I mean, how long were you future endeavored before somebody from TNA was on the phone?
Yeah, it was just about a month. It was you know, you are under your contracts where it's, you know, 90 days where you can't do anything. And then if they really want to stick it to you, they can hold you to it more than that. But it was pretty immediate for myself with TNA, and you know, they want to talk to Charlie too, but even by that time, I mean, it was well before 3 months that he even knew that he was going to go back. It was even quicker than that, that he knew. So that's why I was kind of doing tours around the world and just going to learn in Japan and Italy and everything. But it's okay. But with myself, yeah, it was pretty much an instant thing with TNA. Terry Taylor gave me a call and said, hey, we'd like to work something out. So.
Okay. And when you went into TNA, you, I guess, were eventually or immediately put right into the mix with Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah. And at that time, there were only a few girls there too. So, yeah, it was a great. I was there at a very, very good time, I think. So.
Did you know Jeff before going to TNA?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, how intimidating was that then, being put right into the main heels storyline?
Yeah, you know, it was great and it was exciting because it was the main storyline, of course. You know, I was put in a position where, you know, you're with the main eventer in a main storyline at, you know, your first go at it. So it was certainly something that was intriguing and interesting. So.
I think it did get a lot of fans' interest. Weren't you voted the Woman of the Year for TNA for 2005 as well?
Yes.
So it seems like you captured a lot of people's attention, and you had that storyline going on that, you know, there was sort of a blackmail element to it as well.
Yeah, you know, it could have gone in so many different directions, and like I said, just with anything with wrestling, it was kind of dropped, but.
Well, this is what I wanted to ask, because there was a bit where you seemed to be blackmailing Jeff, and then there was the big turnaround where then he had dirt on you, so he was blackmailing you. And then it never sort of reached a conclusion. I mean, were you ever told what the conclusion to it was? What the main payoff was going to be?
It literally changed every week. It was like, oh, we could do this with it, or we could do that with it, or we could do this with it, or we could do that with it. And it's kind of like, okay, do you guys have any idea what you're doing? They're like, no, but we're just going to keep on letting it go. You know, I think everybody at that point had their hat and their hand in the bucket and just kind of wanted to, you know, get an idea, and they were just throwing things around and, you know, kind of wanted to take credit for stuff, and who knows? And then it just, unfortunately, it unfolded the way that it did. So
let me get this right. At the start of the angle, they had no idea how it was going to end. They had no idea what the blackmail was all about. Then it switched around, so you were being blackmailed, and you didn't know, and then they didn't know what that blackmail was all about, and then they didn't have an idea about the logical conclusion.
Exactly, pretty much. It's all about anticipation and yeah, exactly. It's you're given something where it's going to go, and then it's retracted like 10 minutes later, and something else is thrown at you. So I can really say that there was no definitive beginning, middle, or end to that.
Oh, total non-stop action writing there.
Certainly sounds like there were too many cooks in the kitchen as far as that's concerned. I mean,
yeah, that's the case with I think a lot of writing in wrestling.
As far as TNA was concerned, who was in charge creatively at that time? Who did you work mostly with?
Dutch Mantel was actually the guy that I worked mostly with. Yeah.
And how did he compare to whoever it was you worked with in WWE?
You felt at WWE it seemed kind of like you were just wasting your breath completely. At least I shouldn't say completely, but at TNA I felt a part of things. And if they wanted you to, they just kind of gave you something to go with and here, go with it and go, versus doing a pre-tape and stopping and redoing it a gazillion times because you didn't hit this specific word in this specific way. And, Vince and Stephanie are very particular about how they want something done, versus with TNA, if the emotion just flowed and if it felt right through the camera, regardless of if it was where they were going or not, that's what it went with. And that's where I think you could do a lot more of your own character development, and where you really felt a little bit more in control and more part of what you were doing there.
Well, that's an interesting question because it's something that a lot of people have been talking about recently, and that is with regards to scripting of promos. Was WWE then far more scripted as far as that was concerned, or did TNA?
Yeah, just like in anywhere, I'm sure that Taker has a promo, or well, it very rarely does, but, Shawn Michaels has a promo, and, they're just like, hey, say, this is your point, go and rattle off of it, where someone like a rookie like myself, yeah, they give you word for word, point blank, what they want you to say. So, it was a lot more scrutinized in WWE, I can say that, versus TNA. But yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. You felt like you were under a little bit more of a microscope at WWE, definitely.
What if you deviate from the script that they've set for you as far as WWE is concerned? What happens?
Like I said, there's just a gazillion. You can get a pre-tape done in the first try, or you can be on the 5th hour of it and it still not be exactly right. So, it's something where it's just every single time and every single pre-tape would be different. I mean, you're certainly not going to get your hand cut off, or you're not going to get fired unless if it's something that you just horrifically can't do. But they should know that again before they hire you. Right.
Okay. Well, certainly from what you're telling me, the creative element in TNA was a little bit more wild and woolly than WWE. What about the locker rooms? How would you compare working in the TNA locker room to the WWE locker room? Was it a more politically charged environment, or what?
You know what? Yeah, it's definitely with WWE. I mean, just like with anywhere, you have to get comfortable in your skin and comfortable in your surroundings. Just because WWE was a much grander scale, and still to this day, I just think it is. WWE is more publicly known than TNA. WWE had a lot more girls there, so a lot more veterans, where when I went in with TNA, I was just Val, Tracy, Gail and myself at first, so you went in feeling, okay, like at least in my situation, like you could breathe a little bit more. There wasn't people that you kind of hung out with, and then some people that you just said hi to, and that was it. So it was a lot more laid back at TNA. I had a lot of fun at WWE too, and I'm just certainly, TNA and WWE are just two, at least when I was with both companies, it was like two completely different worlds, where WWE just felt a lot more corporate, felt a lot more like nail-biting, like, am I going to be here tomorrow? Am I doing things right? Am I not? Whereas TNA, it was a lot more relaxed, and you felt like you were a part of something. And don't get me wrong, being with WWE is one of the most fantastic things that's ever happened in my life, and I even loved going back to WrestleMania, how short it was, and everything. And I loved being part of that company. It was such a tremendous point in my life. But, definitely it went back to the locker room in that sense too, that, I certainly have several of my girls that were in my wedding and Charlie and our wedding. They were definitely WWE and, TNA people, and, TNA was just a little bit more homely, I guess.
Okay. Now, the strange thing happened. We talked earlier on about how you and Charlie got married, and you had success in your personal life, and it ended up in professional being released. Something similar happened, I guess, in TNA, where you got pregnant with your and Charlie's first child, and then you got released from TNA.
Yeah, you know what? It's one of those things where we definitely knew that we wanted to have children. Both of us, we both wanted to be parents, and that was something that was just a known fact. And but we certainly didn't think it would happen this quickly. But everything happens for a reason, and you're put in different circumstances and situations and everything in your life at times when sometimes it's planned out and sometimes it isn't. And I would not give back anything in the world. I mean, did it stop my career prematurely? I'm sure it did. It certainly did, but I would not give back anything in the world for how things happened. It's opened up so many other doors and opportunities, and just being a parent is the absolute best job in the world. And I see a lot of times that that women, especially in today's day and age, wait and hold off on having kids because they want to finish their career. And not to say that would have been us, but I'm just, I'm glad it happened when it did, and I really, really, really am. And that's it. As Charlie is too. So
no, that's fine. No, I mean, but the question is, were you fired because you became pregnant? Is that?
Well, I was that's kind of a gray, sticky area. No one will say yes or no to that question, of course. I was still with the company and even on TV for about 4 months after I found out, and then it became, it might be a liability reason, to even be on the set and yada yada and all this, and just we're going to keep you under contract, you're not active, whereas with TNA you have to work to be paid versus WWE you could be on the downside. So I technically, was still under contract, but I was not making any income from them since I wasn't working. And then when the time came to say, okay, I'm back and could be ready, and we could talk about things and, on a limited quantity of shows and, or a limited schedule, because this was the point when they were starting to do house shows too. And then it just became that gray, sketchy area of, we're not going to renew because we need more out of you than what we think you can give. So that really, that hit me hard, but in the realm of things, you've got to put things under circumstance and say, what's more important, creating a family and having a family. And are things in life going to suck that happen? I could have gotten fired from McDonald's if I was working at McDonald's and got pregnant, not that exact type of thing, but, you also have to understand that, that sucks, and I could have made it work, and, we could have made it work, and I would have liked to pursue my career more. But, I'm not going to let that hinder me being a mother and me being, a wife and having a family. And, when one door closes, another one opens, and you just have to take it that way, So.
Well, it certainly kept you busy. You've got your 2 children now, and you're keeping yourself busy in a lot of different projects too. But as far as your life is concerned now, as far as your motherhood is concerned, it sounds like, you're very happy and comfortable where you are, and it does still give you a lot of different options. Yeah,
it certainly does. I like the world of the fitness world, and like I said, being an athlete and a competitor, I'm venturing into the world of triathlons, which is keeping me busy with training and everything. And then just doing some modeling here and there. But really the main venture is our store, Custom Muscle, that Charlie and I in Umaga had opened together, the retail portion outside of Dallas, Texas. And, the .com portion that now we're relaunching with JBL, which is nutritionmarket.com. We wanted to take a facet of our lives being health and fitness and health and nutrition, and we thought, what can we do with it? We've led a lifestyle up to this point, and we want to, after wrestling is said and done and everything, we just don't want to sit back and say, hey, what's next? We want to kind of merge one thing with the other, and that's where we decided to go into the supplement nutrition industry. And we have a smoothie bar and smoothie shop at our Custom Muscle location in Dallas. And then, like I said, our online store that we have, it's just going to explode here with JBL in the next coming months. It's something that we want to give back to people, that certainly care about their health and well-being and fitness, and give them the knowledge that we've acquired throughout the years, and being certified personal trainer and everything, just kind of putting it all together.
Yeah,
I guess as far as you've got your busy life is concerned. Like you said, you're still keeping healthy, and you're still preparing for other athletic ventures like the triathlon and stuff. But you also found the time earlier on this year to go to WrestleMania as well, like you were saying earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was glad to be a part of it. It was something that, I'm glad that you can go back and say that you did. I wish that it would have unfolded a little bit differently, I think, as every girl and a lot of the fans wish that it would have. But yeah, it's just something that you've got to take wrestling and take every opportunity that it presents and go forward. But, it's certainly something that you go back to, and especially me, 2 kids later, and going back in and saying, hey, look, part of it again. That was kind of neat, and just to feel that rush again and be in front of fans was certainly something that was enjoyable.
What did you know about it when they called you up?
It was a battle royal, and that was it. And then when you got there and you realized, well, there's 25 girls in this thing. We have not talked an ounce about it, and it's the day of WrestleMania. You think, oh, good Lord, how's this thing going to unfold? It's just, it could have been something a lot bigger. They take the time to bring back, some of the girls, and you couldn't even see half of anyone. Everybody's like, thank God you wore those crazy pants, because we could tell at least who you were, not to say I wouldn't do it again, but I would have spoken up and piped up a lot more and said, hey, look, are we going to, I would have made it a point to talk to agents or, talk to somebody about it first and say, hey, look, how is this going to unfold, And unfortunately, the girls just kind of got shoved under the bus with that whole circumstance, and even the whole point of the match, was the Santino thing. So enough said.
Were you disappointed?
Yeah, like I said, I was glad to be a part of it. Disappointed overall, yeah. I mean, yeah, I was. You always wish for more. You always wish for more whenever you're performing, and for it just to kind of be thrown in like that, and just everybody in a whole big mishmash. It's like, yeah.
Well, what was it like being, back in the locker room and, being around people who you may not have, I assume, because of Charlie, you see them from time to time, but, to be back there and to actually be, going out there and working.
Yeah, it was certainly a different vibe, because I didn't even know half the girls that were there, honestly, on a lot of the roster. But yeah, it was certainly it was a cool experience, but yeah, I wish overall a little bit something more would have been done with it. But yeah, it was a very I don't want to say uncomfortable situation, but it was something that I think they took the time to do. They should have done a little bit more with it.
So do you still watch much of WWE or TNA?
Hate to say it, but no, not even when Charlie's on, and hopefully he'll be back on pretty soon. But no, I honestly, I don't have the time for it. If I can catch it and if I remember to catch it, then great. If I know if some of the girls, I like to catch the girls matches, I really do. But, for the most part, I don't have the time to.
I guess as far as that, you have got a lot on your plate. You've got a lot of different things that you're doing as well. I was going to ask about, if there was anybody who caught your eye, or was there anybody who caught your eye on the WrestleMania weekend? I guess, it was very difficult as far as not being able to meet everybody, I suppose, or get to know everybody. But was there anybody there who you thought, this person looks like they've got the right attitude, I suppose?
Well, I can say as far as like wrestling is related, and this is just my negligence with not really watching a lot of it, was just how much Michelle McCool improved. Like, she really, from when I knew her, just being the Diva contestant or Diva Search, or one of the girls from the Diva Search, and then got it and everything. And she was just this meeker little girl, and then you walk in there, several years later, of course, but it's like, wow, she rules everything now, and her work certainly backs it up in the ring. It was just, I couldn't believe it was the same person that I was watching. So I thought that was really, really neat. And then also the whole Kid Rock thing was cool. I just wish that the girls didn't have to suffer at the expense of it just all being about Kid Rock, Did
you know, just on a fun fact, that you have a WWE alumni page on the website?
Yeah, you know what? Somebody just told me about that not too long ago. I know. I was like, oh, okay. I know, and there are a lot of people that aren't on there, and I was surprised that I was on there. I was like, that's kind of cool.
Well, the funny thing is, it might be cool, but it's slightly inaccurate because, apparently, so it says one of the things that it mentions you down is the fact that you were part of the 2004 Diva Search.
I was what?
You were part of the Diva Search, apparently, according to that website.
Well, see, yeah, there you go. That's a prime example of WWE right there. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. I'll have to tell Charlie to tell somebody or give somebody a call on that one. That's great.
Yeah, so...
Does it say anything about Tough Enough or no?
I don't think it does. I don't think
that's
it does.
hysterical.
So, yeah.
So I'll have to write an email about it. Well, hey, at least I'm on there. Yeah.
Apparently it doesn't say anything about Tough Enough. So, yeah, you need to put in a phone call to
yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's too funny. Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I just knew that I was on there, but I can honestly say I haven't even gone now. I'm going to have to look at it.
Oh,
okay.
That's fantastic.
I'll make it a point. Thank you.
What's next for you then? Have you got any plans to do anything as far as wrestling is concerned, or are you just concentrating on the business?
Yeah, concentrating on the business certainly is the first and foremost priority. And just wrestling takes up so much time. Like I said, I would love to be part of it. And if the right opportunity arose, I certainly would. But, our kids are just too young right now, and I don't want anybody else raising our family. We decided to have a family to have a family, and you certainly can't lose sight of yourself. I just don't think that's healthy as a person, being a mother or a father. But I can honestly say I'm at a very, very happy point right now. Do I miss it? Yeah. Like I said, do I wonder if maybe one day I might be involved in it again? I don't know. I mean, I'm still 27, so I started when I was extremely young, got out when I was young, and maybe there is something in the future. But for right now, it's too demanding of a schedule, and there's a lot of other things going on too, where it would have to be something that was just the right fit. And I feel right now it's just not the right fit for being a mom for me. I'm with a company, a supplement company. You can go to hmb.org. It's a recovery, strength and recovery supplement. So I'm doing a lot in the fitness industry on their behalf. And, in 2010, actually look for me. I'll be starting to compete in the, fitness and figure circuit of, professional figure. So, that's something that I have coming up within this next year's time frame. So competing and being on that circuit takes a lot out of you mentally and physically, but it's something that I can prepare for and do when I'm at home with my family. And expand on that aspect of the nutritionmarket.com and our custom muscle store and, everything that I'm doing with HMB, and everything kind of put that focus and everything on that for the next few years. And then maybe after I've attained that goal and been in that circuit for a little while and the kids are a little bit older, wrestling might fall right back into it. So,
speaking of going back to wrestling, you got 2 kids. Is it something you would like to see your kids go into, become second-generation Haases, or?
Yeah, Charlie and I always joke, we'll keep the girls as far away from the ring as possible. No, not in a bad way. You know what? I mean, my parents were great. They thought it was crazy, but, they certainly supported me when I made the decision to go into the pro wrestling. And, you know what, as long as it's safe and it's in their best interest and they were to want to do it 1,010%, it would definitely be something that we would support them doing. We would encourage them to be an astronaut or be a librarian, whatever it is that they want to do. So, but definitely the main key, and I tell this to anyone that I speak to that's ever interested about pro wrestling is, you've got to have a plan. Pro wrestling comes and goes. Sometimes it's in people's lives forever, and other times you're on top of the world, and then the next day, you don't know what's what. And it certainly is something that you just have to be prepared for. So
I think that's something you definitely are. I mean, we've only had the pleasure of talking to you for a short time, but it's clear that you're one of those people who's got your head screwed on as far as your life is concerned to use your money to have something for you whenever the wrestling business isn't there.
Yeah, you know what, and you see that too often. You see it situations where, where it is, wrestling's done, and then you kind of look at some of these, alumni and some of these other people, and then they go, oh my God, now what's next? And it was something that especially because we have a family, Charlie and I have more of a sense about that, not to say that other people don't, but I mean, a lot of people who are in this industry, that's all they know is pro wrestling. So when it's done, it's either like you have to start over, or they're constantly trying to go back to it and grab at it. And it's something that both of us want to have a positive experience with it and use it. And, use it to our benefit and our family's benefit and learn from it and know that that was a portion of your life and it doesn't have to be completely your life. It would be great if, if Charlie was world champion, and had another 20-year run. Yeah, that would be fantastic, and it would solely be his life. But you just have to be smart about things, and you have to be smart about, your game plan for your family, and that's where we're at. So.
Okay. Well, let's just have a quick overview, I guess. And I mean, with regards to the time that you were working in wrestling, who's the person that you worked, obviously apart from Charlie, who's the person that you worked best with, either as a wrestler or as a partner or something like that, someone who really represents the best of wrestling as far as you're concerned?
Honestly, somebody that I learned a lot from, and that I had a lot of fun with matches, especially in house shows, because we didn't do a lot. I love doing, more athletic stuff and moves, but just understanding the wrestling and the theater of it and being able to tell a story. Dawn Murray really taught me a lot about that, and just how to go out there and you don't have to take all these crazy bumps, and you can still entertain people, to still do athletic stuff in it. But that was something that I'll really take away from it. And the same type of thing with Rico, certainly working with him, where you have to, the first step in wrestling is you have to understand your character. You have to understand your purpose there and why you're there. If you can do that, then it becomes a gazillion times easier for you, and it becomes 1,000 times easier for the fans, I think, to understand and appreciate and get the feel for what you're doing. And that's the hardest thing, I think, to grasp with pro wrestling is, go out there and realize who you are, and I really got that from Rico and from Dawn, and like I said, Charlie, of course. So, and the wrestling aspect of it all, I learned a lot from, of course, Fit Finley, who was fantastic, and then Victoria a lot, Lisa Marie. She was fantastic with just always being willing to help me and, in the whole 9 yards. So.
On the converse side of that, then, is there anybody that you really find it difficult to work with? Not necessarily that they're a bad person, but just for whatever reason you just didn't work with them.
You know what? And I think that this was kind of her downfall, too, in the industry. Linda Miles, just because she's a great person, but I think I said this before, she's very headstrong, and she's a very determined person. And sometimes when you have someone with the attitude of it's my way or the highway, not that it's a bad thing, because it's great to be confident and it's great to say, hey, look, we're doing it this way. Wrestling is such a give and take that you have to be willing to give yourself a lot more than taking. And in my situation, and not only in mine, but I know a lot of other people's situation, with her, that just wasn't the case. So, unfortunately, I mean, even though I have a lot of history with her and, we both got in the same way, I just wish it would have been a lot easier to work with Linda. So, there were some difficult times, difficult matches there where you just knew that you weren't even going to get near the same book, let alone on the same page. So,
one more time, let's run over the places where people can find out what you're up to and can get involved with your businesses. There's justjackiehaas.com. It's your personal website.
Absolutely, yes. And then the new nutritionmarket.com, which is also custommuscle.com. Nutrition Market and Custom Muscle are merging into one. But, yeah, my personal website is justjackiehaas.com. And then here I'll throw out three at you, hmb.org, like I said before, is the supplement company that I'm with. So if you want to read up on a lot about my what I'm doing athletically and in the fitness industry and all of that, that's where you can go, is hmb.org. And then, of course, for below discount and wholesale pricing of everything under the sun of your health and nutrition needs, everything from tanning lotions to fat burners to protein to child gluten-free products. We're across the board at nutritionmarket.com. So you can stock up on your vitamin D because that's what helps prevent the swine flu. That's our number one seller right now, I can honestly tell you.
Oh, I've been there and done that. Oh, I've had that swine flu.
Oh, well, for anybody out there that's listening, to prevent the swine flu, vitamin D, simple vitamin D. That's your health and nutrition tidbit for the day. There you go.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, well, Jackie, I think that's everything we had for you today.
Great.
On behalf of Stu and myself, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to us on Women of Wrestling, because it's been a fantastic chat, and it's great to be able to speak to people like yourself who do have stories to tell, and may not necessarily always have the opportunity to be able to tell them. So, as a 2004 Diva Search competitor, according to WWE,
Yes.
is there anything else that you'd like to throw on
Yes,
top
you know what? I know that's so funny. I'm gonna text somebody right now and tell them to check their stats